Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, we're taking a look at a perfect IV level 50 Shadow Garchomp in the Master League. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Sniped Bra, so many thanks for the battle submission. Garchomp did get quite a few updates this season. Mudshot got buffed, it got access to the newly buffed Twister, and Sand Tomb now does extra damage as well. The moveset that Sniped is running is Dragon Tail, Twister, and Legacy Earth Power, as Earth Power's extra damage will be clutch against Zacian. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and speaking of Zacian, unfortunately in game number 1, Xerneas leads into it. Immediate save switch into Shadow Claw Marshadow, opponent responds with Kyogre. This honestly seems like a pretty good spot to be in as the Marshadow. Now it looks like these battles were recorded on a tablet, so that's why it is a little bit different to what we normally see, but I didn't really want to compress the footage to try and fit it into the normal size that would normally be on the overlay. So the overlay is going to look a little bit different here just because it was filmed obviously on a different size device, but I'm excited because Shadow Hundo Garchomp is definitely not something that you see every day. Kyogre lands the Avalanche on the Xerneas. Xerneas going to be no shielding, hoping it can survive, but it cannot. Origin Pulse connects. And now it's all up to the Shadow Garchomp. Shadow Garchomp has to respect the Avalanche. This is double super effective damage. Garchomp is going to go for the one shield farm down, taking quite a lot of waterfall damage, but exiting with a ton of energy. Back in comes the Zacian. Zacian's about to get absolutely shredded by Shadow Earth Power. Earth Power connects. Zacian gets rocked. Garchomp just can't quite get the farm down as Zacian survives on 1 HP. Zacian fires off the last second close combat. In the back is Dawn Wings Necrozma, and this game is over. Shadow Hundo Garchomp connects with the Twister. Garchomp already at this Earth Power, and that is going to do it. Earth Power is going to connect. Down goes Dawn Wings, and that's a good game. We move to game number 2, leading Xerneas into Lunala. This is a pretty neutral lead matchup, but as time goes on, Lunala will definitely be favored, as Lunala does have a slight pacing advantage. However, if Xerneas is able to land a Moonblast and then potentially switch in that Marshadow, then Marshadow is able to apply a ton of double super effective fast move pressure and get that Lunala low. And that's exactly what he's going to go for. In comes Marshadow. Lunala stays in, and they survive on 1 HP to make the last second Shadow Ball. That's a very clutch survive for the opponent. They're now going to be sending in Kyogre, but Kyogre is so far behind that Marshadow is already at the back-to-back close combats. Opponent now has to decide, do they throw an alignment, do they risk the CMP tie? They do risk the CMP tie, but Marshadow is just going to take the free Shadow Claw. Shield comes up, these waterfalls now going to be hitting for extra damage due to the -2 defense, as Marshadow goes for close combat number 2. A double shield from the opponent, in comes Xerneas, reaching for the close combat, but unable to get there, as Kyogre will fire off the Avalanche, while they actually go for the Surf to deny that energy. With still a completely unknown final Pokemon, this is going to be a tricky game to win. In comes Shadow Garchomp. Garchomp farming up, firing off the Twister. Oh my goodness, they catch onto Palkia. This is going to hurt. Shadow Twister rocks the Palkia. Palkia is going to get fully Dragon Tailed down, and Garchomp exits with the Twister loaded. Absolute disaster for the opponent. They get the catch. It just gives Garchomp the perfect farm down to take the knockout with the Twister and get the win. Picking up a great lead in game number 3, Xerneas into Palkia. Opponent safe switches into Dialga, but Trader, this is not an answer to Xerneas. Xerneas has a pacing advantage, Geomancies do add up for quite a bit of neutral damage, and Dialga can just never catch up. Dialga's only hope now is to play the 2 shield and try and catch a close combat onto whatever they have in the back. Close combat's going to be launched by the Xerneas left and right. Dialga now down both shields and in quite a bit of trouble. They're able to get the final shield back from the Xerneas, but now it comes down to a catch for the opponent. Xerneas overfarms, watching for the catch, and the catch happens anyway. Very well played by the opponent, catching the close combat onto the Metagross. In comes Marshadow. These Shadow Claws hitting for super effective on both sides. Unfortunately for the Marshadow, this Meteor Mash is going to hurt. Marshadow would love to double up, but it's not going to have the ability to do so. The Metagross damage is just too oppressive. Marshadow farms up till 1 shy of the back-to-back and fires off the Ice Punch. Back in comes the Palkia, in comes Xerneas. Xerneas racing to the Moonblast, able to get there. Palkia chose to not throw the Aqua Tail, and that's going to cost them. Moonblast takes the knockout. Back in comes Dialga, and this is going to come down to the opponent needing very good energy management to win the game. Ironhead will take the knockout onto Xerneas. Dialga needs the Roar of Time, and Ironhead will not cut it. Garchomp makes the Twister on the Charge Attack priority tie. Did they get there? Is this the Roar of Time? No, it is not. It's the Ironhead, and this game will end in victory. It was a very commanding lead matchup, but the opponent played well to catch on Metagross and make things uncomfortable, but in the end, Garchomp takes the knockout and gets the win. Very familiar lead matchup in the next game, leading Xerneas into Dialga. We just saw that matchup play out last game, but the opponent's going to be pivoting out and sending in a Reshiram. This team does not have a convincing answer to a Reshiram safe switch, so Xerneas is going to stay in, take some considerable damage, and return fire with the Moonblast. In comes Shadow Garchomp, sniping down Reshiram with Dragon Tails, and this Garchomp energy should hopefully go pretty far. Back in comes Dialga. Garchomp farms up to the Earth Power, baiting with the Twister. No shield comes out as the opponent tries to call a potential Sand Tomb, and they'll fire off the Iron Head right before the next Twister is available. So Shadow Garchomp will get knocked out, but this is an opportunity potentially for Marshadow to try and go for a one-shield Shadow Claw farm down. Oh, gonna send in the Xerneas instead. Xerneas will not be able to outpace here. That will actually be a charge attack priority tie Iron Head to the close combat. Xerneas gonna be letting itself get KO'd, and now it's time. In comes Marshadow. Opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back, and it's a Shadow Shiny Groudon on Dragon Tail. That is an incredibly cool pick. I don't think I've ever seen a Shadow Shiny Groudon before. I definitely don't have one. And that is, wow, that is an absolute sight to behold. The good news for Marshadow is Marshadow's up energy and the Shadow Claw to Ice Punch pacing is very, very efficient. Ice Punch after Ice Punch, pulling shields away from the Groudon. Groudon able to grab the final shield, but there's realistically just no way out. As Groudon's getting outpaced, Ice Punch is reached, the Shadow Claws have added up, this Ice Punch should be taking the knockout, and all that's left is Dialga. Dialga has to hope it can make it to an Iron Head, and it just simply cannot get there. This game definitely felt like the Marshadow show. Marshadow taking both shields, taking 2 knockouts, and getting the win. We now move to some daytime battles, Xerneas into Kyogre, and this matchup does definitely favor the Kyogre. Xerneas gonna strike first as it fires off the Moonblast, but Kyogre can survive this and can never really be farmed down after. The Moonblast will land, Kyogre massively overfarming. To me, this kind of telegraphs an Origin Pulse. Xerneas no shields, oh, they're not even running Origin Pulse, they're on Surf. I do believe that Kyogre's correct moveset now is Avalanche plus Origin Pulse or Avalanche plus Thunder. Opponent fires out the Surf and then sends out Zekrom. Zekrom will be taking super effective damage from Ice Punch. The coverage on Marshadow is really, really nice. Marshadow able to grab a shield, and Zekrom's forced to throw. Marshadow has the bulk to avoid being farmed down. This forces energy out of the Zekrom, and now in comes Xerneas. Xerneas now guarantees the final shield or a knockout here with the Moonblast. Moonblast lands, down goes Zekrom in the back. No, it's Ice Fang Zamazenta, and that is going to be an immediate top left. Great lead in the next match, Xerneas into Zekrom. Opponent safe switches into Zamazenta, and it's once again on Ice Fang. The priority now for this game is to neutralize this Zamazenta no matter the cost. Zamazenta can never be allowed to see that Shadow Hundo Garchomp lurking in the back. Close combat lands devastating damage onto the Zamazenta, and now in comes Marshadow. Marshadow gonna look to absorb Behemoth Bash and look for a farm down, but it can't get there. The bulk of Zamazenta able to hang on, make a second Behemoth Bash, and pressure a shield away from Marshadow. But the opponent's gonna be getting aggressive. They pivot back into the Zekrom, but Zekrom's so far behind on energy. Ice Punch lands onto the Zekrom. Marshadow already had another Ice Punch, and this will come very close to just cleanly knocking out the Zekrom. There's also a close combat banked on the Xerneas, and in comes the Xerneas. Xerneas still outside of Fusion Bolt range, so this is a very safe no shield. Xerneas can now just farm up to the back-to-back close combats, or here just as close to back-to-back without letting the opponent make another move. Close combat will take the knockout. In the back is Landorus. This will be some very valuable chip damage. Close combat is going to be resisted, but it does add up onto the Landorus. Landorus does get a little bit of an energy head start, but Landorus is going to have a bit of a tough time against the fast move pressure of Shadow Garchomp. In comes Garchomp. This is a very easy no shield. Sandsear Storm will add up, but Garchomp can survive it. Garchomp goes for the Twister. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Man, Xerneas picking up some very nice leads now leading into Kyurem. Opponent safe switches into a Duskmane Necrozma, and Duskmane is going to be chipped with the close combat before I assume Marshadow will hit the field. In comes Marshadow. These Shadow Claws are adding up. Marshadow absolutely has to respect the Sunsteel Strike, but this Duskmane is on Outrage. Outrage would still do quite a lot of damage. Marshadow just cannot get the farm down as Duskmane leaves with a parting gift. It is only going to be the Iron Head, but Iron Head does get Marshadow very low. In comes Kyogre. Marshadow doubles up on the close combats. But at -2 defense, will the Waterfall take the knockout? No, it will not. Marshadow hangs on and will get both of its close combats. The first was shielded, the second one is going to land, and that is very valuable damage. Now in comes Xerneas. Xerneas going to be going for the charge attack priority tie here on the close combat. Xerneas no shields, Origin Pulse connects, that's a one-hit knockout, and Kyurem is going to be answered with the Garchomp. Unfortunately, this is a Dragon Tail Kyurem. That is not what Garchomp was hoping to see. But they no shield. They call the Sandtube bait. This Garchomp's not running it. The Twister lands. Garchomp farms everything down. Oh my goodness, that win con appeared out of thin air. Great lead in the next match, Xerneas into Palkia, and the Palkia is not switching out. Even better, they're just staying in and throwing energy on alignment. Oh my goodness. And they undercharge an Aqua Tail? What is happening in this game? Xerneas farms up, tries to go for the Moonblast, loses charge attack priority, and I am just at a complete loss as to what is occurring so far in this matchup. As you can see, the second Aqua Tail did a lot more, so the first was definitely undercharged. I don't know if they accidentally misclicked. Now there's a post-Mud Slap nerf Rhyperior on my screen. Okay, this is getting interesting. Close combat forces a shield. In comes Marshadow. Marshadow gonna try and reach for an Ice Punch, but before it can get there, Rhyperior is now threatening damage. Marshadow no shields. It's an Earthquake Rhyperior. It almost takes the one-hit KO. This game has been absolute whiplash so far as close combat takes the one-hit knockout. In the back is Dialga, and this should just be a win as Xerneas will make the close combat, pressuring the final shield, and then Shadow Garchomp can close out the game with Earth Power. This game honestly felt like an absolute fever dream. There was a Palkia throwing every charge attack on alignment. They, for some reason, missed half the bubbles on their first Aqua Tail. A Shadow Earthquake Rhyperior, but all's well that ends well, as Shadow Garchomp takes the knockout with Earth Power and gets the win. Picking up a slightly negative lead in the next match, Xerneas against Kyogre. If Kyogre plays this right, Kyogre can win the zeros pretty comfortably because Moonblast just doesn't threaten the knockout and Kyogre can overfarm and take the KO with the Origin Pulse. Moonblast no shielded by the Kyogre. Kyogre will look to overfarm, and that's a pretty nice overfarm from Kyogre, and now they should just go straight for the Origin Pulse to secure the KO. There it is, Origin Pulse lands, taking the knockout. In comes Marshadow. Marshadow gonna try and Shadow Claw down, but because Kyogre did a very good job of overfarming, Kyogre does make the Avalanche, and that pressures the shield. Now they're gonna be pivoting out, sending in Dialga. Marshadow building up past the close combat, gonna bait with the Ice Punch, hoping to try and get the shield. Dialga does fall for it. Marshadow trying to reach for the close combat, but can't quite get there. This should only be an Iron Head. So Marshadow able to no shield, go for the close combat, and either pick up the one-hit knockout or grab that final shield. Close combat shielded, in comes Shadow Garchomp. Shadow Garchomp gonna take quite a lot of damage as it tries to make it to the Twister. These Dragon Breaths have already done about half of Garchomp's total health bar. Iron Head will get shielded, Garchomp going for the Twister. This should be taking the knockout onto Dialga. There's no Protect Shields remaining. Garchomp's gonna have to win the 1v1 in the back. In comes Metagross, Garchomp farming up, going for the Earth Power. No, the catch! Oh no, disaster! The catch onto Kyogre, and that's gonna seal it. Unless there's a catch, there is not. The opponent too patient. They get the catch. They have the patience. What a game from the opponent. Terrific energy management with Kyogre, a devastating endgame catch, and that's enough to get them the win. Great lead in the final match, Xerneas into Palkia. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Claw Metagross. Metagross will immediately be chipped down with the close combat before we see the switch out. No shield from the Metagross, in comes Marshadow. We've seen this play out a few times, and this Meteor Mash always does a ton of damage. Marshadow gonna be putting up the shield. Can Marshadow get a farm down? No, not gonna happen. Forced to fire off the Ice Punch, so a bit of a tough spot to be in, as Metagross does get knocked out, but unfortunately shield advantage was lost, and the Marshadow doesn't exit with a lot of energy. In comes Palkia. Palkia will take some pretty considerable damage from close combat, and Aqua Tail just simply doesn't do enough to threaten Marshadow to put up a shield. Marshadow starting to get pretty low. These Dragon Breaths are adding up. Gonna fire off close combat. Palkia does get the shield, and getting the shield back is very, very helpful. Xerneas is gonna be answered with a Primarina. Primarina, in my eyes, is a Pokemon that you can very safely take off your team because Xerneas does everything that Primarina does, but better. Primarina also really struggles in the stat product department. Oh, what a catch. Primarina should be firing off the Hydro Cannon here, and it's going to be caught onto the Shadow Garchomp. The Charms are actually not doing a lot. Garchomp's going to make an Earth Power. That forces Primarina to fire off another charge stack, and now from here, Xerneas will be able to close out the game. Opponent tries for a catch onto the Palkia. They do not get it, and Xerneas will put up the shield. Xerneas has to manage energy very carefully here, farming to 100 energy and going for the Moonblast. Moonblast will be game over for the Palkia, and now with this residual energy, this puts Xerneas only 2 off of the Moonblast, and the better Fairy type is taking the win. Moonblast takes down Primarina, and that is a good game. all in all, Shadow Garchomp, it's definitely more of a pick for fun than for climbing in the Open Master League. This is firmly a Spice tier Pokemon, but I would say prior to this season, it wasn't even Spice tier. It was basically just unplayable with how bad it was. I'm really pleased that it seems the developers took some time this season to try and correct the past injustice. That was both Garchomp and Flygon kind of having their viability completely destroyed by previous nerfs. Whereas the nerf to Breaking Swipe really meant that Garchomp didn't really have any good pacing options. It was stuck with Sand Tomb, which did basically no damage, which obviously got majorly buffed this season, and it was stuck with Outrage and Breaking Swipe. And obviously, if you land an Outrage, it's going to end up working out pretty nicely for you, but it's just a pretty expensive move. So having a significantly cheaper move in Twister ends up being a really nice plus, and it now has two pretty viable fast moves. So whether you want to go for the extreme pacing of Mudshot or with a little bit of extra damage on Dragon Tail, it allows these Pokemon with identical typings to perform kind of in very different roles depending on what you need for them. So I'm a very big fan of this update. Again, I think that Shadow Garchomp is firmly in the, you're playing it for fun, you may go positive, you're probably going negative, but it's at the very least a Pokemon that will be a plus in some games. It's not guaranteed to be a liability in every game like it would have been in previous seasons, and in general, I just like seeing Pokemon improve. So, big thank you to SnipedBra for sending this in. Upon seeing it was the Shadow Hundo, I'll be honest, I have some very good Shadow Hundos. I think that is up there with Shadow Hundo T-Tar for how cool of a Shadow Hundo it is. Because getting even one Shadow Hundo is extremely rare, and so to have a Shadow Hundo of a Garchomp, man, that is very cool. So many thanks to SnipedBra for sending it in. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys always very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.